Welcome back to Boilers and Beyond. I'm Jordan Jones. Purdue was unable to pull an upset on Saturday. It is a disastrous second quarter. Proved to be too much to overcome. Illinois winning 43-27 inside Ross-Ade Stadium. Illinois retains the cannon for another season. Purdue's looking for some answers after a disappointing defeat. We'll break it all down here on the show today. If you don't, be sure to follow the show on Twitter at Boilers Beyond. Lots to talk about. Only going to ramp up here as basketball gets going in 30 days. 30 days from now, the first official game. Be sure to follow on Twitter. Join the conversation. You can always send in questions for the show. Do it there on Twitter. You can email the show, boilersandbeyondpod@gmail.com. And subscribe wherever you get your episodes. Coming at you every week plus throughout the end of basketball season and beyond. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a thing. Illinois 43, Purdue 27. Purdue falls to 2-3 on the year. Purdue falls to 0-2 in Big Ten play. For Purdue, it was a good start to the game. It was a really nice start for the Purdue offense. The ground game saw some success early, something that we really hadn't seen a lot of this season. You know, the Southern Illinois game was a little bit nuanced there because Purdue did have over 200 rushing yards, but it did so on just 5 yards per carry against an FCS team. It wasn't like Purdue was ripping off big explosive plays. But early on, you saw Devin Maccabee rip off a nice run. I think Antonio Harris had one, and then he had another nice touchdown run later in the game. You saw Purdue have... Let's see here. Yeah, Antonio Harris, a 25-yard gain. Maccabee, a gain of 18 early on in the game. Ryan Brown had a scramble for 16 yards to get a first down in a big spot. Purdue was moving the ball really nicely early on in the game. You look at the first drive, gets a couple of first downs. Purdue gets a couple of first downs. Purdue might have crossed midfield there. I can't quite remember. But Purdue moved the ball nicely. Purdue was able to get a touchdown on that second drive. Purdue gets in the end zone, and Purdue moves the ball well on its third drive before a fumble across midfield. It would have been a first down. Michael Jackson gets it punched out. And then at that point, the game flipped a little bit. The game got away from Purdue there in the second quarter. Right after that Michael Jackson fumble, the next play, Illinois hits a 62-yard touchdown as Crew Wakely and Taj Rael ran into each other on the back end. Guys wide open. Illinois scores. After Illinois' opening punt, it scored on the next 6 possessions. Now, you can take solace in this game. A positive is that Purdue did force 3 punts. This was a defense that had gone 2 straight games without forcing a single punt. So... yeah, there's something there. That was a positive. That was a real positive thing. But in that first half, Illinois racks up 339 yards of offense, 267 of those coming through the air. You can't win with that. There's no overcoming that. 27 points in the second quarter alone. You're not able to overcome that. Purdue's offense is not good enough to be put in that type of a hole and climb out of it. Tony Grimes was an unexpected name on the injury report, and that did play a role here. Tony Grimes did not have a good day at Notre Dame. He struggled a lot. You saw him get burned on that deep ball to open the game at Notre Dame a few other times, but it was obvious how big his absence was in this game. Barry Odom said they knew on Wednesday. He got hurt on Wednesday in practice, so Purdue didn't have a ton of time to prepare without him. It just would have been a Thursday practice. You know, that's not much time. And you saw poor communication. You saw Illinois have 9 passes go for 15 or more yards. 5 of those passes were for 39 yards or more. That doesn't work. You can't win like that. There's no recipe for success when you're giving up that type of big plays. And it doesn't help that Purdue doesn't have a pass rush. It's It is what it is at this point. That's not going to change. The personnel Purdue has on its roster, just a limited group. CJ Nunley got his 3rd sack of the season, but you don't see Purdue getting pressure without bringing the house. And when you bring the house, you leave yourself in a really, really vulnerable position. And that's where Purdue is here. That's where Purdue is here. This is something that you can try to find some workarounds. You can try to find some adjustments to maximize your capability on defense, but you're going to be limited when you're not able to force some chaos. And Purdue just doesn't have that. You look at this game, a 2-play 80-yard touchdown drive for Illinois. You look at that drive before halftime when I don't think Illinois was even trying to score. Illinois ran it on the first play, I believe, and let the clock wind down, but then it hit an explosive. And then it hits another one, and it's in field goal range, and Illinois adds on another field goal before half. Purdue had just hit a 60-yard touchdown pass. I believe that cut it to 24-14, if I'm remembering this right. And you're feeling okay about yourself. Illinois gets the ball to start the second half, but we can keep it at 10. And instead, Illinois goes down, kicks a field goal. It's 13. They kick a field goal on the opening drive of the second half. It's 16. And Purdue just could not get together enough stops. The second half was better defensively, but at that point, the damage was done. The dam had broken. Illinois scored 43 points. I don't think this Purdue offense is capable of getting to that number. I don't think Purdue can win a game that's in the 40s right now. It's really hard to do. It's really hard to win games like that. Now, Purdue did force 5 field goal attempts. This defense largely has done a pretty good job at a little bend, not break action. Notre Dame game was something else where Notre Dame, I don't think, kicked a single field goal. They just found the end zone every time. But USC game, Illinois game, Purdue forces 5 field goal attempts in each of them. But if those turn into touchdowns like they did against Notre Dame, then this is a different conversation we're having where instead of a 16-point loss, you're looking at a 27-point loss that feels worse than it is. And it's a bummer because Purdue defended the run a lot better. 8 tackles for loss, less than 3 yards per carry for Illinois. Purdue found something there without TJ Lindsey in the lineup. He's done for the season. That worked. That helped stop the run a little bit after it was an abomination against Notre Dame. Now, it's worth pointing out, this is not the same front that Notre Dame has. Illinois has some good players, on the offensive line. Fegan's an all right running back, but it's not what Notre Dame has. It's not what USC has in Wayman Jordan. It's not that. But Purdue did a nice job there defending the run. The pass defense just didn't give Purdue a chance, and Purdue didn't have a chance with how many little things added up on it. We talked about the fumble, Michael Jackson fumbling there in the first quarter, early second quarter, that flipped some momentum. But Purdue commits 8 penalties for 64 yards. It didn't end up biting Purdue. It was a drive that was going to end in a field goal that ended up ending in a field goal. But Charles Correa has a blindside block in the first quarter when he's 20 yards away from the play. Purdue had forced a 3rd and 5 there. It's an automatic first down. I'm almost positive Illinois still kicked a field goal there, but that can't happen. You have 2 kickoffs go out of bounds, giving Illinois prime field position. A 4th and 4 coming out of a timeout. Taj Rael doesn't just jump off sides. He almost hit the quarterback before the ball was snapped. 2 plays after that, Illinois hits for a gain of 27 yards, leads to a touchdown. A bunch of drop passes. Pro Football Focus gave Purdue 4 drop passes on the day. It felt like more. There were some passes that weren't on target that I don't know how you categorize. Drop, not drop. I don't know. But it wasn't a particularly crisp day. Nitro Tuggle had some struggles there. He'd done some really good things in September. Not a good start to October for him. And the worst of all, Purdue has a muffed punt. And there were a few points in the second half where it felt like Purdue was a score away from really putting pressure on Illinois and really making this thing interesting. We've talked about it in the last 3 games here. When you're an underdog, you have to apply pressure on the favorite. You have to get them to tighten up. And at that point, anything can happen. But in this game, Purdue was never able to get Illinois to really tighten up, ever not able to put real game pressure on Illinois to where it felt like Illinois could lose. By mid-second quarter, you never once felt like Purdue was going to win this game. And Purdue forces a punt. Purdue's down by 2 touchdowns, or at least 2 scores. Game got off script a little bit there. But Purdue forces a punt. It's getting the ball back down 2 scores. Michael Jackson muffs it. Illinois gets the ball in the red zone. Nice job by Purdue's defense to hold Illinois to a field goal there. But that just is another area where the momentum flips hard on Purdue. Hard. And that can't happen when you're an underdog of, I think it closed at 7.5, but 7 to 10 points. When you're a home underdog like that, you've got to build on those momentum opportunities. You got to get that crowd into it. You got to get the crowd believing in you. And that wasn't able to happen. And it's a shame because we're sitting here talking about a game where Michael Jackson caught 14 passes. I wasn't able to find much in the Purdue record book, but when's the last time a Purdue receiver caught 14 passes? I mean, did Charlie Jones do that against Penn State in the opener? I can't remember how many he had. David Bell, Iowa games, maybe? I don't know. It's been a long time since you've seen a receiver have that type of day. But those 2 fumbles, backbreaking. And it prevented Purdue from really making this one a game, really putting pressure on Illinois the way Purdue did last year, and it almost broke Illinois. It almost won that game that it had no business winning. A Purdue team that was worse than this year's team. But Purdue hasn't been able to overcome errors like that in games against power conference opponents because this is still a team, at the end of the day, with a really thin margin for error. Purdue has done some decent things this season. Purdue has shown some improvement in areas. The offense has looked good at times, legitimately good compared to my expectations. But the defense is really limited, and that means you have to play an almost flawless game. And you have a couple of key fumbles that lead to points, and you have 8 penalties, some drops. The stuff adds up, and you don't have a chance. I thought Ryan Brown was pretty good in this game, but Purdue had to rely on him too much because the game got to catch-up point. The game got to the point where Purdue had to catch up. When the game hits that spot, when you're down 2 scores in the second half, you don't have time for long clock-bleeding drives because you have to score, you have to get your defense out there and get stops, and if you're Purdue deep down, you knew that you weren't going to pitch a shutout in the second half, so you have to account for some points allowed in there. It's a really difficult math equation. You've got to strike quick, and that's why Purdue wasn't able to run the ball as much in the second half. That's why when you look at it in the postgame, Purdue threw the ball 50 times to just 25 rush attempts. That's what happens when you're down big, when you're down 2 scores in the second quarter. I don't know if Purdue ever went down 3 scores. I can't remember here, but Purdue was down 2 scores for the majority of this game, the majority of the time on the clock. It was a big deal that Brown didn't throw an interception. He had one that probably should have been picked off, but he had a nice day, I thought. He did as well as he could have. The offensive line still, that right side is just a problem. I don't know what Purdue has behind those guys, but at this point, you have to just assume that's the best Purdue has, and it is what it is. I thought Brown competed really well. I didn't think he was super sharp, but it is what it is. The ball floats on him sometimes. He's not able to really drive the ball in the way he delivers it. But all in all, it's not like Ryan Brown's the reason Purdue lost this game. 30 for 50, 302 and a touchdown. You tell anyone that before the game and you're going to take it. No picks, absolutely. It was really interesting, though. If you haven't listened to the post-game press conference yet, go over to Golden Black's YouTube page. It's there. Barry Odom was fired up after this one. He came in and delivered an opening statement that himself, his coaches, his players were terrible all around. They weren't good enough. And that was the first time we've really heard him fired up. It's the first time we've heard a coach really fired up like that in a while. I don't really ever remember Ryan Walters like that. Jeff Brom certainly had his moments, but he wasn't really like that around the media a ton. Barry Odom is normally a pretty meat and potatoes, pretty straightforward type of guy, pretty mild-mannered in the way he approaches the media, but he was fired up, and he did it in a respectful way. Someone asked him a question about taking some solace in the fact that Purdue competed well, and Barry Odom wasn't having it. He said, look, this is the bare minimum expectation here, that we compete till the end. And I thought it was interesting to hear that, because my thought was Purdue competed to the end. Purdue didn't quit when it easily could have. That second quarter, a lot of teams quit after that. You give up 27, you just get pantsed in the second quarter. A lot of teams throw in the towel. But Purdue came back, Purdue fought back, it had a better second half. It just wasn't enough. It ultimately wasn't enough. And it was a good presser. I recommend listening to it. It showed you where Barry Odom is, how he feels, that they've got a ways to go. They've got a ways to go. I thought Illinois is a good team. It's not a great team. You can slice and dice it however you want. Great teams don't lose games by 53. Illinois lost a game by 53. Good teams, though, don't beat Duke the way Illinois did. They don't beat USC at home like that. Illinois is a good team. There's talent there. Luke Altmaier's a really good college quarterback. Purdue's secondary had its problems, without a doubt, but this is someone who's played a boatload of college football. He is really experienced. He was calm. He didn't get hit once in the game, so that always helps. But this is a veteran Illinois team. 16 returning starters from last year. Purdue came out, popped him in the mouth a little bit. It scored. It moved the ball well. No panic from Illinois. No panic at all. Purdue's going to see better teams this year. Purdue already has seen better teams. Purdue's going to see better teams throughout the year. I think the turnover margin is getting concerning. I try not to be too reactionary about this because at times it's fluky, right? There's no... like Illinois punched the ball out on Michael Jackson's fumble when he was playing wide receiver and caught it and was running with the ball. But there's nothing Illinois did to force a muffed punt. But at some point, the turnover margin is problematic. At some point, it tells you something. And through 5 games, Purdue is -7 in turnover margin. Purdue's only forced 1 turnover. In Purdue's last 2 games, it has forced a grand total of 5 incomplete passes. CJ Carr was 10 for 12, and Luke Altmaier was 19 for 22. Purdue's not disrupting the passer. Purdue's not making them put the ball into harm's way, and it's difficult to force turnovers when you don't do that. You're relying on peanut punches at that point, and that's not exactly something you can bank on. Look, it was a mixed bag, right? It's a mixed bag. I thought Purdue came out of the bye week looking fine. I thought Purdue looked ready to play. It looked energized, and the better team won. And that's a reflection of where this team is. There are real limitations with this roster that you can't change in season. You can't sign a free agent and bring them in. You can't do that. You can't make a trade. You just kind of have to battle with what you have. I had someone on Twitter hope they give the coach and staff time to get there. They will. I mean, this isn't something where you're looking at schematic stuff and scratching your head. This isn't something where Purdue's looking like it quit. Purdue's looking like it doesn't care. That's not the case at all. Purdue's looking like it competes. There are limitations. Someone asked about backbreaking plays. Illinois has all these big gains and turnovers and drop passes. Asking if Purdue cleaned those up, would they be a competitive team against, the average Big Ten teams? Yeah, I mean, I don't think Purdue's non-competitive at this point. I wouldn't look at how Saturday unfolded as saying Purdue was non-competitive. I think it reflects that Purdue has a long way to go to get to where it wants to get to, but Purdue was competitive. Illinois wasn't able to put this thing in cruise control. Illinois still had to fight. Illinois still had to score into the fourth quarter. Just on a down-to-down basis, the defense isn't good enough. The offense isn't good enough to overcome a bad defense. Like sometimes you see these teams where, I can't really think of a good example off the top of my head, but like Lincoln Riley's Oklahoma teams, where the defense isn't that good, but the offense scores so much that you're winning games 52-38. Purdue doesn't have that type of offense, and it becomes a pretty tricky math equation to score enough to win these games and not give up too much to keep yourself alive. It's just a limited roster. And I had someone ask, are you seeing any areas of improvement from game one to now? I do. I think Purdue is a pretty cohesive team. I think Purdue's a fairly connected team. The secondary breakdowns were what they were. That's just part of it. I think Purdue has done a nice job of playing to its strengths at times, a good job of trying to make the most of what it has. I think you're seeing Purdue be pretty self-aware, and that's a good thing. Ryan Brown has gotten better as the season's gone on, I think. The run game was good in this. It wasn't good against Ball State, so I do think there's been some improvement made there, but just some of the shortcomings are what they are. And as you play better and better competition, you don't exactly get better there. And then with parity in college football more than ever, is there any chance Purdue upsets one of the better teams on the schedule down the stretch? Says this as he is watching UCLA beat up on Penn State. Yeah, that was wild. That was wild. That was one of the crazier games I've seen. One of the more shocking outcomes I've seen in recent college football memory. I watch a lot of this stuff. I absolutely love college football. It's my favorite sport by far. I can't believe that. There are just some games you watch and you can't believe it. I couldn't believe it. I could not believe that happened. I don't know, man. I don't know. As far as that goes, yeah, Purdue's going to have a chance as long as it's competing in these games, because dumb things happen when you have a oblong ball and people running into each other at high speeds and the ball bouncing everywhere, and weird things just happen. But what I'll say is if Purdue's defense doesn't improve, if Purdue doesn't have a defense that can hold a team under 400 yards, under 450 yards, your path to that gets really narrow. You're having to win a game like the 2018 Purdue-Ohio State game. I was in the media guide yesterday. The most passing yards Purdue's ever given up in a game was 2018 against Ohio State. Dwayne Haskins almost threw for 500 yards. But Purdue got stops in the red zone. Purdue had a pick six there at the end for Marcus Bailey, and Purdue took advantage of all its scoring opportunities. That's your formula. That's your formula to doing things like this. Maybe Michigan. I don't know. I'm not predicting Purdue to win any of these games, but Michigan has a limited offense. Can you rip off a few explosive plays and throw a lot of pressure on them and make the big house nervous? I don't know. Maybe. But you go to Minnesota, and that's going to be enough of a challenge this week. Now, Minnesota just got rolled by Ohio State yesterday. Ohio State might be really, really good. They might be phenomenal. So we'll see. But yeah, Purdue certainly can. I think at this point, I would still say Purdue wins another game here. I'm not impressed by Northwestern all that much, but Purdue still has to just keep improving. Purdue needs to get Tony Grimes back. Purdue would love to get George Burren back. Have all the weapons at your disposal. because it's an uphill climb here. But that's all I've got for today. We'll be back later this week. We'll put a bow on this Minnesota game, we'll put a bow on this Illinois game, preview the Minnesota game, talk a little bit about the Big Ten, where Purdue's at here. Should be good. Send me your questions. Let's talk Purdue football. Let's dive in deep. At Boilers Beyond on Twitter, boilersandbeyondpod@gmail.com. Subscribe, follow the show over on Twitter. I'll talk to you guys later this week. Until then, take care.